Hi, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today in this webinar session, Scouting in the New Norm. It's good to see so many people of you here today. I think we have slightly over 300 registrants for this session. And just did my calculation earlier, I think we have over 28 countries were represented to be joining us this morning here. Just want to greet you, Ms. Aishan Alam, good morning. Chief Commissioner from Maldives, welcome to the session. Hope you enjoyed the session too. And Dr. Tin Neo, Chief Commissioner from Myanmar, good morning, welcome. We have I think Mr. Wilson Lai is here as well, Deputy Chief Commissioner of Hong Kong, good morning. Mr. Elston, Deputy Chief Commissioner for Australia. Mr. Lion, good morning, Deputy International Commissioner of the Gerakan Pramuka. Congrats on your anniversary yesterday. We also have friends from the European Scout region, as far as the European Scout region. Ms. Linda, you're here, good morning, representing the British Overseas Scouts. Mr. Ludo, representing the French Scouts group in Singapore. We also have, I think Mr. Bola is here, representing the Egyptian Federation of Scouts. Good morning, welcome everyone. And we also have friends from the America. From South America, I think Isabel is here from Ecuador. Mr. Josie from Mexico. And I see Mr. Andre from Peru. Welcome. I think it's evening time there. Good evening to you. We have friends representing Boy Scouts of America, Miss Melinda Bush. And I think I see Elizabeth as well. Good evening to you as well. And of course, not forgetting our friends from the Girl Guide Singapore who are also here with us this morning. Hi, Jasmine. Hi, Putri. Okay, once again, welcome to all of you today in this webinar, Scouting in the New Norm. So as we all know, Scouting has been very much guided by our Scouting methods. And it's unfortunate that it's being disrupted during this pandemic that we are facing today. And to some of us, or rather to most of us, the solution is really on how do we go digital, like us today conducting this webinar session digitally, connecting with each other. However, the question would be, how could we instill the Scouting methods and create the same experience, or rather as close as to possible, on how do we mimic the experience over digital or in the virtual world. Today's speakers are professionals in their own field of business. Just for the record, 3 of the 4 speakers are not scouts yet. I hope they could consider after this session. They will be sharing with us on their field of expertise and how we could adapt as much to fully leverage on today's technology and to create a safe and meaningful experience for our young people. Now, before I start, just want to get attention to everyone on some of the house rules that we have. Just give me a minute. So just some housekeeping rules. As we are all now being muted, may I ask that you do not unmute yourself at any time during the entire session. Let's us just get our speakers to share as much as possible. And we have a chat function, which we will be using it for questions only. So there will be a Q&A session towards the end of this webinar session after when all the 4 speakers has completed their presentation. So may I ask that if you have any questions, please just keep it towards the end. And we have more than enough time to let our speakers take on these questions. And also, lastly, just a reminder that this session is being recorded. We'll be uploading the recorded version on YouTube for your personal viewing after this whole session. All right, without much further ado, may I invite our first speaker, Mr. JR, Regional Director for the Asia Pacific region, to give us a welcome opening address. JR? Hi, JR, are you on mute?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
Good. Greetings of peace to everyone. It's good to see familiar faces in this webinar. We have some members of the regional committee, other subcommittees, and for the record that we are expecting about 300 Scout leaders joining in this webinar, coming from not only from the Asia Pacific region, but from other regions of the World Organization of the Scout Movement. Well, friends in Scouting, Scouting will always embark on a journey that is exciting and adventurous, whatever the situation is. And this webinar has taught us how to face the different phases in life while on this health challenge. And this is what each of our Scouting members does also, as they believe to be always prepared to face the challenges while on a journey. We congratulate the Singapore Scout Association and its team, headed by its Chief Commissioner, Brother Antong Labat, who is also the chairman of the Asia Pacific Adults and Scouting Subcommittee, for collaborating with industry leaders and influencers so that the Scouts can always get prepared and learn from them. Collaborating with external partners is consistent to the two targets under the Social Development Goal, number 17, which is partnership for the goals. These two targets focuses on 17.6 as well as 1717, which involves all the partners to share knowledge, cooperate, and have access on science, technology, and be innovative to be able to establish that regional and international cooperation within each country, and in collaboration also coordinating with the United Nations level. This also encourage and promote effective partnership in all segments of the society. And this undertaking of Singapore Scout Association should be recognized as you initiated this webinar. Recently, there was a question if Scouting can bounce back to the new norm. The quick answer that we can give is yes. Scouting, born in 1907, has been existing for 113 years now and has survived disasters, either natural or man-made disaster. For more than 100 years, in this time of crisis, Scouting continued to do their duty to God, to others, and to self. Let me give you some facts on how Scouting played very important role in any challenges that they have faced. In 1986, during the Chernobyl accident, Scouts were involved in post-traumatic processing of children and young people who were victims of that nuclear power. Scouts were the one first who arrived also in the scene when the Union Carbide cyanide gas leak occurred in 1984, which caused thousands of deaths. And several years ago, Scouts mobilized themselves to distribute and prepare food packs after the super typhoon hit the island of Leyte in Philippines. And recently, the blast in the city of Beirut, Scouts organized themselves to do what they can do to help in this time of crisis. And I would like to thank the NSOs who have supported our scouts in Lebanon to help them in providing assistance to those affected by the bombing. So these are some of the challenges where scouts can immediately adapt to and work in an agile situation. These are challenging times and realities also that are changing. And this webinar is food for thought for us leaders. And I would like to invite all of you to make the most of your time here, though it is limited, because the inputs here will be very relevant. And I urge our scout leaders to reflect how scouting can adapt and move forward. We have to always remember that scouting will never stop. We will have to continue and move forward. So thank you and happy scouting to everyone. Let's have a very good webinar within the next few hours. God bless everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, JR. Our next speaker, Mr. Alvin Lim, is the director and founder of his company, AM Collective, a personal friend of mine. He has started off as a blogger in 2007. Right? He's a social media influencer. And, interestingly, Alvin, I've just checked your social media pages last night. Just for the record, Alvin has got on his Facebook page, he has over 33,000 followers just on Facebook. He has got over 67,000 followers on Instagram, 6,000 subscribers on his YouTube channel, 36,000 followers on his Twitter. And all in all, as a calculation as well, I think he has got almost 143,000 followers over the fourth platform. Very influential instead. So without much further ado, may I welcome Mr. Alvin to you. Alvin?
Hey, hi, Darren. Thanks for the glowing introduction. Yeah, can everyone see my screen? Can, right? So let me start. Yeah. Okay. Thanks for joining me for the inviting me to speak at this session. So as you see, I'm not in uniform. I'm not a Boy Scout, but it's something that intrigued me when Darren invited me to do a sharing for this. I'm also find it very interesting that you have Scout members from around the world joining this chat, joining this call. I hope what I share will be interesting. I will try to some of the context they are a little bit more local and based with examples from Singapore and so on, but I will try to speak about it in a more globalized context. So a little bit about myself, more details. So other than what Darren have shared, the influencer thing isn't really my full-time job. I'm not really a full-time. There are influencers that they just make money from doing things like live stream and so on. So that's not what it is. When I started, it was just as a blogger. So in the past, I'm quite old. So when I started back in 2007, blogging was something that was new. So there wasn't Facebook and Twitter and so on. And in that generation, blogging was not something that anybody would have envisioned that it could actually have a sustainable income from there. People who blogged at a time that was in the early 2000s. At that time, it wasn't something that could become a career or that that you earn money from it. So most people who blog, they do it for interest. It's more a hobby thing. But along the way, along my career and so on, because I was always in digital marketing, social media marketing and so on, I was using my blog more like a platform to do testing for content and so on. And I got good with it, and in the traffic grew from there. And I was able to then ride on the wave where there was that influencer thing trend going on, and to actually monetize that. So that in a way helped me, because then I have a dual stream of career. So I just want to share more about how, like for anybody or a person as an individual or organization, how, even your side activity, your blog, whether it's a blogging thing or sharing on a social media platform like your Facebook and LinkedIn, they actually are part of your personal branding or your organizational branding, and you can use it as a leverage to further expand whatever interests you have and things like that. So throughout the span of my career,
Hi, Alvin.
yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you there, but I think you're sitting in front of a fan is a bit.
The fan is very loud, is it? Okay, let me.
Yeah, sir. Or either the mic is too close to you.
No, it's the fan. Let me switch off the fan.
All right. Yeah, better. Thank you.
Wait, Okay, sorry, I have a very large fan. Yeah, large fan as in a real fan, not a fan per se.
You have a
Better now?
large fan base as
No lah.
well. Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
So in that context, right? So because of what I do on the blogging and social media front, it has helped me in my career quite a fair bit. So since the time I graduated until now, I have never really searched for a job when I leave from one place to another. I've always been headhunted, and it's because of the visibility that you have when you are very engaged with the online world, and so you have a high profile, and generally you will not catch. Like if you go to my Facebook or Instagram, so I won't be posting generally pictures of me getting drunk, wasted at party and things like that, or not wearing a mask and going out in during the COVID time lah. But my point is that everything that we post on social media and so on, it does reflect what you do in the real world. So yeah, just sharing a bit of that. So for organizations I work with, I'm now with SingX, which is a business event organizer, fully owned subsidiary of Temasek Holding, which is the sovereign wealth fund in Singapore. Before that, I had various career with News Corp, which is the owner of Wall Street Journal, Dow Jones. I also worked with the International Olympic Committee for a while when I was working on the Nanjing Youth Olympic Games in 2014 as their head of global English content, and various other places like DBS Bank, Singapore Press Holding, and so on. So let me share about using social media and content for your own branding as an individual. Then after that, I will go on the organizational front. So for the individual front, right, how it all started for myself was that back then, for some of the older folks, if you remember, there were services like Blogspot and WordPress, which are for blogging. So in 2007, I started alvinology.wordpress.com as a experimental platform to test content. So the first article that I wrote, right, was if you see the picture on the screen there, I went to a event. It was a World Book Fair event in Singapore. So during the event, there were some kids. They were reading a particular comic book lah. It's the title of the book was How to Make Money Like a Porn Star. So when you look at the book, right, it is inappropriate for children. It's very obviously inappropriate. But I think the way the organizer has structured the sale was that it is a comic book. So comic book should be put in the children's section. So that book was in the children's section, and it was weird because then I see a lot of young kids, like the one where I black out their face. They were reading the book and being very engrossed with it and probably very intrigued about how they can have a career as a porn star. But I went to feedback that to the organizer, and they just brushed it off, and they didn't take any action. And I was thinking, what else could I do then? So this is, bear in mind that this was before the social media time, so there wasn't like Facebook, Twitter, and stuff. So then I was just thinking, since my job is in online marketing, I wanted to do an experiment. What if I wrote an article about it and then I put it on a blog as a first article? And then after that, I went to the media, which was the local newspapers and agencies and so on. And I fed them this story. And it worked. After that, this thing went viral. And then after, so this is, again, I said this is pre-social media. It went viral in the sense that the mainstream media picked it up. And when people start Googling for it and searching for it, it will all land on my site because I was the first person to put it up. But my point is that, when I realized how powerful, anybody can be a content producer, or you can put content forward. And it's even more so now, you see it even more evidential for the fact that, everybody can have a Facebook, Twitter, or WeChat, Weibo account and so on. And you can set up, you can actually disseminate one to many, and the autonomy of the media was gone in that sense. And I was in the media industry. So that was a very interesting social experiment for myself. And then with the experimentation, I just wanted to test like how different kind of content can get reactions and so on. And that was something that I've been working on for the past couple of years, and then it grew. So things got really more serious, I would say, in about 2013. So that was in Singapore. That was with the proliferation of social media channels like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and so on. So this services start coming in, and they were making inroads, opening up offices in Singapore. Ad dollars and other things was coming in. So that was when I realized that, hey, there was a potential to maybe scale up, and I start to explore ways to monetize my blog. And then I migrated it to WordPress.org. So it became Alvinology.com. So I was able to have full control of my ad management and other functionalities. And then in 2015, I expanded to open more content sites. So now, and then after that, I grew into the agency business model, which is what it is now. So what I meant by that was that, while you will see, like I said, I'm not really a true influencer, because I think to be in the influencer game, you have to be always up on trend. So now, with new channels like TikTok coming up, I'm also of an age where it's not exactly, I'm not very sure young people want to see me, dancing to Taylor Swift or things like that, doing lip sync and so on. I'm not of that generation. So, but then when you think about it, it does what you do in your social media, building up your own personal brand and profile, it does open the inroad to try out different things. So with that, I found that there was that parallel success that, because of what I do back then as on blogging and social media, I have a lot of requests, or either from my people that I work with in my professional career, or people who I come across because of my blogging activities and so on. They trust me with certain campaigns and so on. So one example would be like brands like Huawei and so on. So from there, I was able to cultivate a relationship with them, and then I actually started a ad agency from there. So that was how AM Collective came about, which is now the parent company for Alvinology.com. So most of my own business, the income stream, I would say about 80-90% come from the agency. So what I'm trying to say here is that when you look at personal branding and so on, maybe it doesn't pay off in that immediate sense. You don't get paid for doing things, that you put out on your Facebook, your LinkedIn. But with that branding and the profile that you built up, you can use that to look at other business models. And in 2016, I also experimented with e-commerce. So then if you go to the Alvinology website, there's a shop tab. So we do sell items on the website as well, just to add another revenue stream to it. And all this happened while I have my own full-time job. So this is the analytics that we have. A snapshot of the various brands that I work with over the year. So that over the years, they are quite diverse, from your banks like DBS Bank, Citibank, American Express, MasterCard, all the way to even Durex, the condom brand, Dyson, Coca-Cola, Qatar Airways, and so on. And a longer list of all the various brands that I got to work with. So with this, right, what I really feel lucky and honored about is the fact that, from a small little personal blog, it grew into this, and it gave me a lot of exposure, meeting people from across industry, just about everywhere. So what works in terms of the personal branding front is that it gives me a lot of visibility, which I truly am thankful for. And the fact that there's that personal branding, so people know me as, when in my day job, for instance, if I were to take on digital marketing roles, head of content roles and stuff like that, they understand that I'm somebody who can walk the talk. And that speaks much better than itself than any kind of CVs that you can write and rehash it. But this is evidence that the work is all out there in public, and it gives me a lot of networking and business leads, which to me is also truly valuable in the line of work that I'm at. getting to know different people. And generally, if I need any marketing connections and things like that, we talk about the 6 degrees of separation. I would like to believe that in Singapore, generally, for anything, it's just 1 or 2 degrees of separation, and I would be able to link anyone up with an organization or something like that within 1 or 2 connection. And lastly, it complements other forms of business ventures. So with that personal branding, I can also, explore other things. So in my case, I chose to open a digital and social media agency. You would see that there are some other influencers that I know, like there's one of the top YouTuber in Singapore, Jian Hao. He also has a F&B business as well. It's not the only one. There are several others like that. So they will look at leveraging, whether it's their fan base or the connections, and to explore other business ventures that makes sense. So it's just like any investments where you don't put all your eggs into one basket. You can diversify. And for the organization front, so like for instance, the Scouts Association and so on, right? How can you use social media and your own digital content for branding? So I think it all ties back to the first thing that I mentioned at the start, where there's a change in the marketing and the media landscape. And for the marketing landscape in particular, for the older folks, you will remember a time when you talk about marketing. Generally, it's probably just your paid media will be just your television, your newspapers, your radio. That's about it. But with the explosion of online, and you see Facebook, Twitter, and all this taking a large part, and this is, and all sorts of social media channels, social TV, and this and that. This is the landscape that we are in. And then there's also things like your ad blockers that people put. And even within this landscape they're operating, when you run ads, whether it's on your websites and so on, people can put ad blockers to block away all your ads. And with that, then you find that if advertising is not going to work, then what works? Probably it's on your own personal content. So for an organization, what's stopping you from using your own platform, whether it's your website, your LinkedIn, your Facebook, or your Twitter, and so on, as a publishing platform to reach out to the audience that you want to? And this is in the Singapore context. In the past, like I said, when you look at the media, right, if you look at the web traffic and so on, the top, in any country actually, the top few visited websites, news media website, will always be the mainstream media. In Singapore's case, it's like your Straits Times, which is the national broadsheet, and then Channel News Asia, which is our top TV news channel. And then now, in this new landscape, we have sites like Mothership, which is online content. It's purely online content, and they actually popped up and ranked well. So it's really very different from what it was previously. And then when you talk again about the media, the fact is that there's the convergence of digital and the traditional media world. So you find Netflix, a lot of them just see Netflix as a video streaming company. But the fact is that when you watch videos on Netflix and so on, it's taking away time, that people have from, let's say, reading the newspaper or watching TV and so on. So it is a competitor in that sense. And then you have all the big tech company like Alibaba buying over South China Morning Post, Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon, buying over the Washington Post. And it's very challenging media time for the media industry. And I remember back when I was a Singapore Press Holding, we were never, at that point of time, that's more than 10 years ago, we will never envision a day when you have people from competing media companies like Singapore Press Holding and MediaCorp, the senior management shaking hand in hand. But here we have a picture of them shaking hands and joining hands to work together, because they are feeling the heat and the onslaught from the digital platform. So with this changing media landscape, it just tells you that the traditional media don't have that kind of clout that it used to have, like in the past. So with that environment, we can also look at how, whether as a brand, as an organization, as a personality, everybody can be a publisher. And again, in the Singapore context, if you look at somebody like our Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong, he actually has more Facebook fans than the number of fans that you have on our two national broadsheet, the Chinese and English newspaper combined. So when you think about that, right, he is a media channel himself. Like everything that he published on his Facebook, it could be just about him exercising and things like that, but it has a lot of traction. So that's something to think about. And I think there's no best example than somebody like Donald Trump, for good or bad, the fact that he's using Twitter as its platform of choice to disseminate messages to the masses rather than relying on news media and so on. So different ways that it can be used for organization. Again, it's back to the fact that it's about branding. You can craft your own brand narrative from there. You can own the narrative, where in the past, if you do things like press releases and so on, very much you're reliant on how the media interpret your narrative. Not saying that you should stop your press engagement and so on, because it's always good to have a third party validate some of the statements that you put out. But the fact that you have another platform where you can address things that you think the narrative is not being strung in a way that you felt is the way you want to portray it. You have your own website, you have your own LinkedIn, your own platform, you can do that. The other thing is also about populating online literature. This is the search engine optimization front. This is something I always find very interesting and neglected in a way. So for instance, like my name is Alvin Lim, right? And the online handler that I use is Alvinology. So when you search Alvinology, I want to have, on the first page of Google, things about me that you probably find are useful or credible. And sometimes when brands, they suffer some reputational damage, and I work on and advise on some campaigns like this. Let's say a F&B brand, maybe they have something happen and they need to do some online literature cleaning. So what you do is then you have to find different ways to churn out more of your online content and so on. So they push down, the negative news that you want forgotten or something to the second page of Google. So those are things that you do to populate your online literature online. And then also, again, similarly, whether it's for an individual or for an organization, it's also about networking and driving business leads. And this worked very well in the same front. And the last thing is the fact that, when you do your digital content and social media channels, they complement other form of marketing that you might be doing as well. So some case studies, Grab and Uber, for instance, if you go to their website, you will realize that they run a content site as well. Why do they do that? That's because they need to engage with their users as well. So, beyond just, it's a good source for them to do some branding. And at the early stage, for when Grab and Uber was just fresh to the market and so on, there was a lot of lobby work that they have to do in terms of like change of legislation in the local countries and so on, because it was disrupting the transport industry in a way. So one of the way that they could lobby in a way that is more effective is to have their own publishing platform to put out their messages, their narrative and so on. And in Singapore, Temasek Holding, which is a holding company, investment is a sovereign wealth fund. The fact that they also have their own content, if you go to their website, if you go to their social media, they're very active and they have very interesting content about their portfolio of companies. So it's not just about, as an investment firm, it's not just about the investment that they make, but their footprint on and the value of the companies and things like sustainability and all this. They publish it and have that to come across. So it's about the branding as well. And this is my former employer, DBS Bank. They are on it as well. So as a bank, why do they need to churn out content? Like they have a Sparks mini series that's talking about trying to humanize banking, and they make it into like a Netflix kind of series where you can watch it and to learn more about the banking world. So getting to work, I want to share some examples. Like a lot of time when people talk about or think about like viral stories online, you would think that the viral stories just happen because they happen, but it can be orchestrated, and this is a secret formula of success that I believe is worth looking at. It's the fact that when you look at content, it could be done in a production factory kind of way, where you basically at the beginning you determine the content pillar that you want to churn out. Then after you write the story, among the story you will, from the regular stories that you churn out, you will start to learn like which are the best. And from there, right, you take the best stories and you multiply them and amplify them through, the use of things like media and PR, social media, community partners, your internal comms, your KOLs, your paid media and so on. And then after that, you have impactful and purpose-driven storytelling. And every step of the way, you try to track what works well so that you can iterate and to repeat the cycle again and again. So one example that I mentioned, for instance, if you remember at the beginning of my presentation, I shared about the book, the incident about that book about how to be a porn star. So that was something that I put through this loop. It was a story that I created, and then I was able to learn some things from it that, hey, I could actually use the mainstream media as my multiplying channels, and that works. And I was able to replicate that kind of examples for subsequent viral stories as well. So if I were to go to the next slide. So yeah, that's something I truly believe in, that viral story can be manufactured. It's just that you have to keep trying and iterating until you get really good at it. So it is of that nature that, maybe if you churn out like 10, 20 content story, could be a branded content story for your organization or for yourself. Maybe 19 of it don't go viral, but you just need that one viral article and or post, and it will justify all the page views and everything that you couldn't get with the other 19. And the key to success is to see whether the process is repeatable. Can you iterate again and to do it again and again to make the next viral story get better? And some of the things that I learned along the way is that it needs to spark conversation, drives leads. So about sparking conversation, my own litmus test is always when I put out something, I would just try to think whether somebody like my grandmother or my parents, for instance, who are not that social media savvy, would they want to share it or would they read it? And if the answer is yes, it's probably a high chance that it might go viral. And then if it's for the organization, whether you can get the stakeholder buy-in, because sometimes when you want to create stories that are more viral, they tend to be on the little edgier side. So you have to have that stakeholder management and to get their buy-in, to trust you to do the right thing and to understand the brand perspective of the company or the organization, and then not being afraid to fail. And the more you do, the more you try, the more chance that you will have a success. So to me, the motto is really to try everything and to not be afraid of failure. This is a little bit more technical. So when we talk about content, there's always SEO content and social media content. The way I see it is broadly driven into two buckets. Social media contents are the kind of content that you read on your Facebook and so on. They usually have very creative headline, or they are very clickbaity. They will tell you, 10 reasons why this and that. And now 9 out of 10 people can be a successful scout if they do this and that. And they try to entice you to click it. This will give you spike in traffic, but it's just spike. So you see sudden jump up and down, because this is the one that give you your viral content. But the SEO content, they are those kind of content that you can write on your website. For instance, like maybe 10 essence of being a good scout and so on, that when people search, it will show up. But this doesn't give you a traffic spike. What it does is that it will increase like a step ladder. And so if you talk about content, I always find that it's important to have a mix of both of this to ensure that you have growth that is sustainable and in the long run. Yeah. And I will skip this. This is about tools you can use. Yeah, so that's about it. Just to recap, so for the using social media and own digital content for individual success, is really about visibility, your personal branding, giving you the networking and business lead opportunity and to complement other forms of business venture. And for organization, it's about branding again and owning your own narrative and to populate the online literature, again, networking and business opportunities. So I'm done with my presentation. I'll hand it back to Darren. And if you have any questions, we'll take it at the end. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Alvin. Yeah, I think it's also important that you mentioned about content generation. I think it's not only on the personal front, or it's not only on the organization front, but also sometimes when we manage or organize events, for example, such as the Jamboree. As a scout, I believe most of us will know what the Jamboree is, but I think to most of the young people out there, it's also important that we generate contents to talk about or to explain what a Jamboree is and how meaningful it is on a very elaborated manner. And I think event management and event marketing also do find the need important for generating content as well. I just have one question for you, Alvin. So we in organization now, I believe most of us has many platforms. We have Facebook, we have Instagram, we have Twitter, we have TikTok, and most of the time we actually mirror contents across all the different platforms. So for example, if I have a posting in Facebook, I will duplicate the posting into Instagram and I will duplicate into Twitter. Do you think that is advisable?
I think when you ask the question, you really don't answer, right? So it's not lah. The fact is that every platform, the audience are very different. So like I said, the reason why I'm not, putting myself on platform like TikTok is just for the fact that I'm not a TikTok person, because different kind of content. I mean, the fact that people are on TikTok is that they want quick, instant gratification, short bites of interesting information, just like your Insta story for Instagram. Versus like if you go on a website, it's probably a long form content, and even for the same social post or the video, the way you cut it for LinkedIn is on a more professional setting, versus say Facebook, which is slightly more casual, and then you have your TikTok and Insta story, which they just want like a 5-second, 10-second condensed like bite, yeah. So I believe that's the same when you at the end of the day is looking at the audience that you are engaging with. And it will be the same for scouts as well. Yeah. Thanks, Darren.
Right. Thank you so much, Alvin. So, ladies and gentlemen, again, we will be taking questions for all the speakers towards the end of the whole session. So, if you have a question, do keep it towards the end, and we will take them on later on. All right. Our next speaker, also a personal friend of mine. We had the opportunity to be working together in the same company a few years back. Miss Emily Chong has been in the MICE industry for some time now. She is a content producer and has recently took on the role of a project lead for a virtual exhibition. I think it was 3 or 4 weeks back. And I would say that she is one of the very first few event professionals in the region that has successfully converted a large-scale event into a digital one. So may I invite you, the next speaker, Emily?
Hello, everyone. Good morning. Thank you for joining me in this session. So just let me quickly share my screen. Give me a minute. Okay, here you go. Okay, let me just minimize this. Okay. So my name is Emily. Thank you, Darren, for the introduction. And thank you so much for inviting me into this session. It's really an honor for us to share our experience about CareHab, as well as some of the digital events that is happening right now that getting transformed from offline to online. So a bit more about myself. So I am, like Darren has mentioned, I'm the content producer and also project lead for CareHab, which is SingX Exhibition's first digital event. So previously, I did work in a few of the MICE organization and produced several conferences and exhibitions that's related to healthcare, pharma, and more. I actually didn't come from event background myself. I spent most of my educational life studying science, but somehow landed into this event space. And I'm quite grateful for this because with the different changing environment and landscape, we did manage to learn a lot of different scopes and knowledge beyond what you can actually learn from school itself. So maybe just to give a bit of background about how events are done pre-COVID-19 so that we can have a better understanding about how events has transformed during this period. So typically an event that is being planned has 4 stages, which you can see on the screen here. From planning, setup, execution, and post-event, this entire process may take up to a year or more, depending on how big the event is and the size and also the criteria and requirements for the organizers. So it's very straightforward when it comes to planning, because planning usually is just about deciding what type of event you're organizing, where is it going to be, what's the floor plan, if let's say it's a conference, whether you need to invite certain speakers, sponsors, invite certain attendees, or even sell some passes. But for setup, usually it's conducted 24 hours pre-event. It can be longer depending on the size of the event. Like for a bigger exhibition, it can take up to 5 days. or even longer. So key elements include setting out a booth and venue, rehearsal for speakers and guests of honor, some of the AV tests, briefing manpower on site, because a lot of time we hire temporary resources, like for example, for security, for registration, for the setup, and also execution of the event. As for the execution itself, key elements during on-site is like, for example, stakeholder management, which include like say, guest of honor arrival. We have to also take care of our important sponsors, speakers, and delegates, and some of the activities that is related, like for example, marketing activities on site, social media posting and such. This all happen on the event itself, and some troubleshooting and conflict management should there be any emergency that's happening. So as for the last part on post-event, usually when it comes to a traditional event, there's not much going on after the event itself. So a lot of time it's just thank you and see you next year or see you next edition, wrapping up with the paperwork, admin work, and planning for the next year again and repeat the entire cycle. So how has COVID-19 changed the event landscape? So first of all, with digitalization, the pace is a lot faster, which means a shorter lead time. No longer can organizer take 12 months to plan an event because things change every day. You have to get up to the speed in order to respond faster. And because attention span on digital platform tend to be shorter, the sessions that is being organized digitally are shorter as well. But that actually what happened when you migrate an event from physical to online is that you no longer require a physical space. So you can see that selecting venue, arranging F&B, all these elements is taken out. But that means that there is also additional step when it comes to execution, because there may be technical troubleshooting that is required for running an event on site. And after the event, instead of saying just goodbye, there's opportunity to build a continuous online community, and that requires another set of planning itself. So transforming events from offline to online actually is different from what we would have expected. It requires a total transformation in mindset and business model, because like I just mentioned, instead of planning for just 2 to 3 days event, we're thinking about a longer range of engagement. This itself requires thinking out of the box, and it requires a lot of stepping up beyond the comfort level, because right now everyone in a team has to tap onto each other's expertise, and cross-team collaboration is very necessary. But the good thing is, with the dynamic changes when it comes to event formats and stuff, a lot of time, the format of the digital event is driven by customer insights. That means that it allows us to be more customer or audience focused in this sense. Somebody is drawing on the screen. Yeah, so the second truth is that it is harder than imagined. Because when it comes to running an on-site event, a lot of people think that it's just a recording on Zoom. It's not the case, because if let's say you want a more professional recording, you may have to set up a digital studio beforehand. You may have to develop your own platform depending on your requirements. There may be some digital marketing skills that you require to be fluent in engaging the online community. There may even be community browser, or what we call the stuntman, required to kickstart conversation. So essentially, some of the key consideration that is required when you're running event, right, are manpower, resources, the type of platform they use, in-house capabilities. And last but not least, running a digital event requires a different monetization model as compared to the traditional event, which some organizers you find it very difficult to handle this shift. That being said, the opportunity of running event is huge, because once you set the groundwork, the actual manpower required to run an event for 50 packs is quite similar to 100 packs or even 1,000 packs. And the format that they use is very flexible. It's really up to your imagination and also how you like to do it, because you can do breakout sessions, you can do interactive activities, you can do a combination of speaking, panel session, or even can do fireside chat and demo. It's really up to your imagination. And it also allows you to continue engaging your audiences beyond the event, reach out to broader range of people, reach out to people of different countries, and even cross-industry. So to better illustrate what I mean by all this, I would like to share a few case studies coming from our own organization as well as some of the industry players out there. The first case study that I have on the screen is called ITAP Academy. So maybe to give a bit of context, ITAP is called Industry Transformation Asia Pacific. It is an event that is co-organized by our company together with Deutsche Messe, which organizes Hannover Messe, which some of you may have heard about it. It's the biggest automation event in the world. So this edition focuses on bringing Asia Pacific attendees to site, and it has 23,000 attendees from 77 countries. These are the stats from last year. So such a big event that has traditionally been held physically is impacted by COVID because of the impact on manufacturing. We all know that COVID-19 disrupted the supply chain and operation of manufacturers. So right now, the immediate challenges have to be resolved first, and the attendees are interested to find out ways to future-proof their business model. That shows that there is a need actually for us to still have online event to share bite-sized activity to learn more about updates about how COVID affected manufacturing and how can we walk up from it stronger than ever. So essentially, digitalization is the way to go to survive in the new normal way of operating. And our customers, they do want to learn more about how to cope with the situation. So what did we do? We came out with this ITAP Connect series, which is a series of webinar, online conversation, discussion with leaders, thinkers, and more on certain topics ranging from COVID-19 pandemic to specific views on how workers can get future-proof and beyond. So these sessions are actually happening every 2 to 3 weeks. And I actually took out one of the example from this ITAP Connect series to show you a format that is quite interesting. It's what I call the simulated live, which is a combination of live, webinar, and pre-recorded videos. So if I can play this.
Welcome to this episode of our series brought to you by ITAP Academy Connect, which is the content initiative.
So from here, you can see that Jane, who is the host, is introducing her fellow speakers onto this webinar. This component is a live component that happened on 8th of June itself. So after Jane introduced her panel, we move on to a pre-recorded session, which is somewhere here. So this section is a panel discussion that has been pre-recorded the day before. It actually helped to keep a consistent quality and minimum disruption because a lot of time due to connection issue, technology problem, the session may get interrupted halfway, or even certain background noise can affect the quality of the recording. So this helped to minimize the disruption that is caused by all these unforeseen errors. So moving forward, after this session is being played, there is a breakout session where the attendees get the opportunity to engage the speakers live. So this is what we call the simulated live event with a combination of live and pre-recorded videos, capturing the good benefit of quality and keeping the benefit of a live event for live interaction. So if we move on to the next slide, this KHEP Go is the one that is closest to my heart because it's a project that has run just about 3 weeks ago. It is the platform that we created for the healthcare professional because we all know that at the moment, healthcare professionals are fighting at the front line against the pandemic. What we realize is that there is a need for continuous learning. First is for their license. Doctors and nurses have to clock certain number of points to keep their medical license. And secondly, these are rehab doctors who need to take care of rehab patient in need of rehab, as well as taking care of their duties at the front line. So they would like to learn things like, for example, taking care of COVID-19 patient, or how do we help patients with heart and lung failure after COVID-19. So topics like these are what the industry needed, and that's why we came up with this platform that allow access of content in own time, own pace, and have the features that mirror the physical event that they are familiar with. So I actually have a few screenshots, but due to lack of time, I will just quickly go through a few that I think is more relevant. So it has a very easy user interface, and it has an AI recommendation engine that can customize the user experience based on their indicated interest. So you can see from the screen here that the user actually get to indicate what matters to them most, and then the engine can help to recommend their activities as well as content afterwards. Yeah. So the customized homepage is also is very useful because we are talking about a group of attendees with very little time because they have a lot of duties that they have to take care of, and maybe they only have time to watch it on their transit. So this very easy layout and very interactive areas, like for example, you see on the screen here, there are goals-driven activities to clock the points as well as activities to encourage them to interact. So all this content is packed in a very easy to access format that they can view it at their own convenience. So I won't go too much details about how we do it, but I wanted to highlight on the webinar that we actually did, live webinar at the end of day one, where the speaker actually do very interactive workshop for 1.5 hours. So this is the speaker who is from our partner Aphasia SG. She basically started the workshop with a bit of lecture to kickstart the conversation and welcome the attendees. After her lecture portion, which you can see, they move into breakout rooms where the attendees get to interact with each other instead of just with the speakers. So this helps to create a lot more engagement in terms of more like encouraging attendees to talk to each other. It feels more like a real event instead of just talking to the screen. Also, to add on to this benefit, the recorded session is also available to view post-event. And to make this even better, this entire session is also powered by Zoom alone. So it's very easy to use and it's very easy to access to. So we move on to the third case study that we have. This is organized by an industry player, which is called Informa. Some of you may have heard about it, one of the biggest event company in the world. So Food and Hotel Asia has been one of the oldest and one of the most established event in the region, took out over 100 square meters and attracted more than 80,000 attendees. So for such a huge physical event, they brought their entire platform online with about 5,000 attendees for 5 days. So they also created an online marketplace for food and hospitality trade with offline to online solution because of their strong database in terms of the buyer and supplier in the food and hotel area. But what I wanted to highlight here is some of the very interesting engagement activities that they have conducted. Like for example, during one of the days, they have a live cooking demo from Myanmar during lunchtime. So what they did was to showcase different ingredients when it comes to cooking Burmese food. And then another session that they had at the end of the webinar is a live cocktail making session. So there is a lively music and there is a demonstration of how to make cocktails on the spot. So all these different activities help to keep attendees in interest and attention into an online platform, keeping them engaged while providing the flexibility for the presenter or the speaker to showcase what they are really good at remotely. So what are the key learnings that you can get from this sharing? First of all, moving from physical to digital event may impact the number of participants. You can see from case study 1 and 3, we have number of attendees of 5 digits, and the number of people who actually turn out online is smaller. These are a few reasons for that. Like for example, trade shows with high percentage of international attendees may be impacted because of various reasons. It can be time zone, it can be Wi-Fi limitation, it can be connection problem, and they may be distracted by other priorities in life as well. But that being said, smaller workshops may see a higher number of attendees, especially if it's priced low or free. So this actually helps to promote inclusivity, and for academic related conferences or meetings, it's really helpful because attendees no longer have to worry so much about financial constraint when it comes to participation. That brings us to the second learning, which is creativity is the only limitation of digital event. So there are so many ways that play around with the format of the event that you find it most suitable for the audience. And there's also opportunity for you to incorporate local flavors. Like for example, we see it in the Burmese cooking session at FHA, or some of the things like interactive workshop sessions that actually allow attendees to interact with each other. So all these are the ways that we can create to better engage our target audience. And the third learning is that online event overcomes the barrier for resources limitation. And the resources here that we mean is venue, F&B costs, flying down the speaker from say US to Singapore, it costs quite a lot, right? And also certain things like attendees who may not be able to be joining on certain day, they can still attend it on demand, depending on the event format. They also will be certain limitation, like for example, travel restriction, which is caused by COVID right now, or due to budget constraint, is no longer an issue when it comes to running online event. And recorded materials can be reused for teaching purposes and future references, which is very prominent in academic-driven conferences. Like for example, in CareHab itself, a lot of the doctors who spoke at our event are also teachers. So they're teaching rehab skills to their own medical students, and they can use the recorded material to reuse it for the teaching in their own institution. And last but not least, basically, despite all this benefit of organizing online event, a lot of time face-to-face meetings are still preferred because of the human touch as well as the body language. So what organizers can do is to allow attendees to meet online and later on spin off the discussion with a smaller group discussion in person, smaller group workshops, smaller group seminars, so on and so forth. Like take Singapore for example. Recently, we have heard from the government that meetings with up to 50 pax can be resumed. So what it means is that, let's say an event that's for 500 attendees, after they have a certain discussion, they can spin off for more and deeper conversation after the event. Yeah, I've spoken for about 20 minutes. So how do we make events more engaging? This is a question that organizers often struggle with because looking at the screen itself, right, is not engaging enough. So how do we make it better? So a few things, like for example, you can conduct live session, you can conduct the time-sensitive contest, like for example, a live demo, a live workshop, a live, etc. Certain things like for example, a time-sensitive lucky draw can work very well. Like for example, a top 5 winner or certain contest can win certain prize, a holiday to somewhere. The 2 examples that I can use to show a very simple way of engaging your audiences, even on Zoom itself. The first one is a poll. So if you can see on your screen, there is a poll that should show on your screen right now. It says, what is your favorite Singaporean breakfast? So if you can vote on it, I'll give you 2 minutes to vote, or maybe 1 minute to vote. So it helps to get the attention back onto the screen itself. Instead of just staring at it, listening to the speaker for 2 hours, it allows attendees to shout out certain vote for a preference, click on a few buttons, and bring their attention back to this. So you can see that, okay, right now we have nasi lemak as the top rated Singaporean favorite breakfast. And then, yeah, so I will stop share result. You should be able to see the result on your screen right now. Okay, so that is the first way to do it, a poll that can engage attendees. And the next example is annotation. So if you look at your screen, on the top, you should be able to see an annotate button. So if you can help me click on it, and then there should be a few functions, including draw, stamp, spotlight, eraser and stuff. If you can click on say stamp, and then just help me mark on the screen on are you enjoying today's session. Yes or no? Yeah, so if you can click on it, you see that you can actually have a lot of interaction with the attendees itself to do voting, to draw on the screen. And there was a session that our company ran. There was so overwhelming response or just a certain answer because drawing on the screen is so fun, right? In the middle of the conversation. So yeah, so these are a few ways that you can engage your attendees during live sessions. Okay, if I can move on. Okay. The next tip is to share a personal stories and experience. I think Alvin previously did it quite well. He talked about his story and experience in the beginning of his talk. It's actually very useful because everyone likes to hear story. So especially if let's say the story is very relatable to a personal experience. So this one I don't need to elaborate further. Last but not least, the last tip I can give is to keep things short. So it's best to keep the session between 30 to 40 minutes or even lesser. If you have to do such sessions like a live workshop for more than 40 minutes, the best way to do it is to use engagement in tip 1 just now, in between session to retain attention. So like for example, breakout session that force attendees to interact with each other, or certain voting session or drawing on the screen session. This can be things that organizers can do to bring back attention. So I think that's my last slide. I just wanted to conclude that due to the dynamic changes in the event space, right, the future event is digital, meaning it's a combination of physical both on with digital conference. So this is the format that the new business norm is, and there's a lot of opportunity that we can all do to tap on to the new trends and then make the best use of the situation. So I hope that this sharing has been useful for you, and I really thank you for your attention. If you have any further question, you can ask me later, or you can write to me directly to my email address on the screen. I look forward to hearing from you, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Emily. It's been very, very interesting, and thank you for your sharing. I think it's on the scouting context, I'll be really looking forward if we could have a digital event, or probably a jamboree or a campfire digital. I think our sister from the Girl Guide Singapore has just concluded a campfire online. I think it was a couple of weeks ago. Perhaps we should get them to share in our next session. All right. Our next speaker, also a personal friend of mine. Vincent is the creative director and co-founder of his company, VMC Media. He is someone who is constantly on the lookout for future trends, explore new technologies, and seek out new media solutions. In his professional job, he helps clients with their communication needs in the visual space. He seeks out new ways to deepen engagement and create new experience for new media. May I present to you Vincent Matthias? Vincent?
Hi guys, let me just share screen for a while. Okay, let me just switch to my slides. Give me a while. Yeah, sorry. Hi. So basically what I'll be talking about is how you can build a virtual event using the current day technologies. I hope to share with you more about tangible applications to ignite your possibilities. So it's not going to be a how-to, it's more a what can you do. Yeah, so feel free to ask any questions you may have. First, 3 things about me. Yeah. Let me just talk about my family first. I have 3 school-going kids, so I understand the difficulties in engaging children. It can be very tiring. You need to engage them all the time. It needs to be fun. So it can be very difficult. With regard to my education, though, I'm actually focused on communications, but very much into the visual space, videos and stuff, which is why I have VMC Media, which is a video production company. Started early 2000s, so that's my work. But my work has also given me quite a fair bit of adventure. I travel around the world. The picture you see in number 2 is actually in China, Yunnan. It was for MOE actually. So I went there to do some filming. I also do corporate projects and stuff. I used to do quite a bit for OBS, Outward Bound Singapore, with the climbing of the high obstacle courses and kayaking and their yachting activities and stuff. So I do quite a bit of adventure, but mostly because of work. Yeah. And my final thing is that I believe that there's a never-ending cycle to keep learning, which is why I dabble with tech, with app development, with Arduino, Raspberry Pis, programming languages and stuff like that. That's definitely not something I learned in school, but I picked up along the way because that's my focus. This is something pre-COVID. Some of the work that we do for Changi, you see me in the yacht in open seas, filming for MediaCore with some celebrities and stuff. So this was really pre-COVID. But to be honest, when COVID came about, there was a deep worry because when we locked down, we didn't know what was going to happen, what was going to take place. The initial concern was of worry. How would businesses carry on? What would change? But instead of being worried, I moved into the idea that there are greater possibilities. And that's where it brought me on to the next. Yeah. So my clients started asking me for streaming, live streaming remotely, so that even in production, it can stay safe. I have calls from London calling me and saying there's a project that they have in Singapore. Can they stream the interview online so that we can conduct the production at the same time, maintaining quality that they want, their content, and then production carries on. We also do social media kind of live streaming for some of my personal friends as well. And they have told me that the live streaming is very effective because of the urgency of things. So they like the realness of the personality. So having, like Emily said earlier, the urgency of like countdowns, the live draws and stuff like that, those are very exciting for people to want to join in and gather. The other one that you see, the little planet picture, which is the blue skies, that's actually what I deem the 360 world, which is very common these days as well. So I'll show you more of it later on. We also now realize that we have to sanitize our equipment, do more temperature checks. So these are things that have changed because of COVID. But before I share with you about the possibilities of the new virtual space, let me just elaborate how you should approach digital content, because that's really what we do on a daily basis. So there are really 3 things that you should focus on when you... Sorry, should I just change that? It's not really 3 things that you should focus on, but one of the 3 things that you should choose to do for your digital content. You can either choose to educate, which is to share your knowledge. You can either do something like e-commerce, so generate sales and stuff like that. Or it can purely be for fun, to entertain, to share an experience. But beyond all 3 of these purposes, the one main thing that cannot disappear is the engagement. How do you then connect with the individual? And to be honest, actually, in the virtual, there are a lot of ways. So I'll share with you briefly later in a while. So while the methods may have, the purposes may have changed, the content has not. So each of your digital content still needs to have a purpose, still needs to be created for someone, still needs to have a message, and it still needs to be engaging. So none of that has changed, but the method has. So in terms of hardware, now you need a lot more computing skills, you need computers, internet. So those are all hardware based, but I won't be talking too much about that. Softwares as well. So you know you need to download some like Zoom apps or Skype. So these are some of the softwares that you may need to use instead, and then there's some learning curve to that. Even creating content online, you may need some knowledge on the software. The third thing is that now you need more support actually. In the past, your support was in the sense of meeting physically, having a team, but now the support is really digital and having someone to help you in the back end. It is not easy holding a webinar alone. Coordinating the people, coordinating resources, registrations, coordinating the speakers, doing slides, ensuring your internet, doing the chats. So all those require a team to help. And of course, if each person just focuses on one, it can be a lot easier for the event. The final one, this is where we will be going through a bit more, is the experience. So let me just share with you how you can do some of this. Yeah, and I'll start with the easiest, which is Zoom, the platform we're on. So like Emily did earlier, we did a poll. That's quite easy to create. So you can do polls and get people engaged. You can just annotate drawings and stuff like that. So Zoom is one of the easier platforms. You can engage as many people as you want with a different tiers in their pricing. But polls is really what Zoom do best. And meetings, and sharing screens, but nothing else really. The other one that's younger but smaller groups is called House Party. I don't know how many of you have heard of it, but it's a game kind of platform. You enter the House Party as an app, you download it on your phones or your phones, and you can play games like Heads Up, Trivia, Drawing and stuff. So it's an interactive way to just engage the young ones or even adults. It's fun, but you won't really play very long on these games, and they have limited choices. This is more real for events. So there's Mentimeter, Slido, Pigeonhole Live. There's quite a few others. Mentimeter is the one I'm showing you now. There is this thing called a word cloud, which is very interesting because all your viewers just need to do is go to menti.com, whether on their phone or their desktop, enter the code that you see there, and they can actually key in the answers to your question, and it starts forming a word cloud where you can then have discussions and stuff like that. On Mentimeter, Slido, Pigeonhole Live, they all have multiple choice questions, open-ended questions, Q&A resources and stuff like that. So there's quite a lot of things on these kind of platforms as well, including polls and stuff. So this is a platform that can be very useful for you. So some other options that you may consider. In your engagement, you may want to do a show and tell. Have someone in your group, share about their day with a photo. Maybe share about a drink that they're having, the last movie they made. So it becomes more engaging because you're hearing about stories, about people. The other kind of challenges, there's music challenge. Guess this music. Who's this pop star? Who's your favorite celebrity right now? Game shows and stuff. Because you can actually quite easily create buttons online where you can see who clicked the button first. So you can have game shows, you have quizzes, polls. And then the other thing, after you decide how you want to do it, is where you want to do it. So you can do it pre-recorded, you can live stream it, you can do it in a meeting format or a webinar format like we're having now. The last one is, of course, where. So Zoom, YouTube, House Party, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, or on the website. So all these are just different platforms, but you need to know what's possible within each. Because, of course, you wouldn't do YouTube for a webinar because no one can respond very well to you. Or you wouldn't do Facebook as a pre-recorded if you want engagement. So it really depends on where you want to do. So maybe let's take to the web to see how others have done some of the things. Some of these are ours, some of these are just global options that people have done. Okay, so this, let me just see. Okay, this is actually a 360 video from YouTube. So Basically, the concept is yeah, so the user becomes part of the experience, so it can be quite fun to look around. You can have your campfires this way, you know, and because now you can just easily get a 360 camera, put it in a smaller group, but share with the world. So your other communities within the different countries or different zones or different cities could actually see your campfire, your celebrations, and they become part of it. The next one I want to share with you is an expo. So you can conduct an expo as well. And in this expo, this is actually a 360 expo. You know, so you can have registrations, invite people to join the registration, sign up for the thing, have videos playing.
Hola, bienvenidos a Interactive Nights. Se pueden registrar o pasar al auditorio.
You can conduct various booths and stuff. I mean, these are things, so even if you have different conferences, different cities that you want to have, these are some things that people have done. You know, so they have videos playing, you can contact them. Yeah, so these are very innovative ways of creating new events nowadays. So because of the virtual, it's a whole new experience out there. You know, networking and stuff, connecting through Zoom and stuff. On the local front, ACS has actually done an open house, but virtually. So how they've done it is very interesting. They actually use Minecraft, something that connects to young. And this is how it looks like. They actually built the whole school environment using Minecraft. And then when it was fully built, they actually invited people to come in to tour the school in Minecraft, which is very interesting. And,
Hi, Vincent.
Yep.
Sorry to interrupt you here. I think some of the participants couldn't hear you clearly when you are playing the video.
Okay, so I'm
want
muting
to
the
adjust
video, right?
the volume of the video.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks.
So you realize that with the Minecraft, you can have a server IP address that you share, and you can invite people to join you. The interesting thing is they also created students where you join in and become students of the school. So you walk around Minecraft, you might walk around the school as students. Yeah? So this is something that ACS did as an open house. The next thing that you can actually do is Snapchat filters. And you can create your own Snapchat filters. So you could actually create Snapchat filters of Scouts related stuff, like the scarf, you know, or cap and Scouts logo and stuff like that, and imprint them on faces. So you can create these sort of things, filters, lenses and stuff, and share them with anyone. So you can start with a template, design your own lens, you know, get inspired by what other people do, and people can share that. So Snapchat becomes a very fun way for your own community to play around. The other one is drawing is always engaging. So whether or not you're holding a webinar, and because you can annotate, so the solution could be to have everyone draw something together, color something together. What have you learned from the course or the webinar? You know, let's draw something, draw and then talk about it. So it becomes engaging because now I'm sharing about what I do and everyone sees it as well. It's no longer just a virtual environment where I'm listening. Now I'm also engaged. This is a free software that you could also try. There is a video editing system, but you do it online. And this is just one example. So basically it's an interactive. So it's a meatball dinner we're having, and you get to choose how you want your meatball dinner. So click here to make your recipe. So as you can see, basically what happens is I choose what I want to see. Is it egg pasta or ciabatta buns? Maybe pasta this time around. So with this sort of, it's actually a pre-recorded video, but people have a choice on what they want to do. And because of that, you can actually decide, like, let's try this out. And your students or your participants can actually say, actually, I like this better. No, I like that better. Then they can all decide, vote on it. And at the end of it, you see a result that's yours. So it becomes another avenue to engage. Yeah. So then they have many videos, but you can do your own as well. This is more a learning solution. So if you want to teach and impart knowledge kind of thing about how to do your ties or how to do stuff, and it's in a 360 role. So you can go around, you see a question mark, you click on it, you can answer questions. Is it this? Oh, I'm wrong. And then there's scores and hidden items to look for. So in this, this person's not wearing a glove. Oops, I found a hidden item. So no gloves, that's wrong. So they're learning stuff as well while going through this together. And you could actually make this into a video call where all of you are in it together. Similarly, oops, let me repeat this. You can play games online as well now with 360 tours. So if I click on it, let me try to find the enemy. Someone, I don't know where it is. Oh, there. So it becomes fun because everyone can join the game. Oh, I hear a gunshot. Sorry, I'm having too much fun. I can't move on. Okay. This is actually an escape room kind of style as well.
Sorry, Vincent. Just perhaps you may want to increase your mic volume a little bit more.
Okay, give me a moment.
Yeah, I think there are some issues with the audio that you're speaking on. Yeah, while waiting, I think this is the first time I'm seeing that we can embed a game system into a webinar session, which everyone can just join to play. I think this is pretty interesting, and I'm sure this will definitely be able to engage our young people more often.
Okay, I hope this is louder. Okay,
right.
so this
Yes.
is a
Thanks,
escape
Vincent.
room kind of format. You join a game, you can go around, and then as you go into a room, you can click into the room, and then you start realizing, how do I solve this, And it loads. So it's really an escape room. And again, this kind of format, you allow people to join in via video calls and play with it together. Similarly here. So yeah, these are just some examples of what can be done to engage people. So just to end off, there are three things that I feel will be necessary. Yeah, one is people still crave to connect, whether it's physical, digital. There is that craving to want to meet, to be connected to each other. The second thing is gamification. You realize that a lot of the new trends and all about having fun, having people together. Let's meet and have fun. Let's play, even if it's a small thing. The house party, just playing trivia games, quizzes, polls. Even polls is because it's fun, it's quick. TikTok people dancing and all, sharing that. It's because it's fun. So there's a lot of this sort of avenues, and if we just focus on creating games instead, actually there's a lot of engagement opportunities. But if we just only look at COVID, like post-COVID, to us this is the new norm. The question is, what happens when we can actually meet again? And I would say that actually now we're so used to these digital solutions, it doesn't stop there. There is the VR world, there's the AR world, and all these digital gamification solutions will not end just because COVID ends. It will become bigger. People will realize the potential, and you can share your knowledge even further. Yeah? So just to conclude, this is one of the quotes I found. You know, life really happens, adapt, embrace change, make the most of everything that comes your way. I think we were always worried about how we can connect to the younger generation, even pre-COVID. The virtual experience was always going to happen. VR and all was always going to happen. Now we just need to move into the virtual and learn best how to connect. Don't see it as problems, see it as opportunities instead. Yeah, because at the end of the day, you are One Scouts, you have a lot of resources. Don't lose that opportunity. What is created in Singapore can be shared around the world. What is shared in Peru should be shared in Singapore as well. So it's really a global connected world right now. So if you want to just share with me some of your thoughts and stuff as well about this, feel free to add my contact or just email me. I would be glad to reply you, and if you have more questions, feel free to let me know. And
Right. Thank you so much, Vincent. Thanks for sharing. I think one of the biggest questions that I believe all the participants has is, what platform are you using now? How do you have a split screen of yourself and your presentation? I think that is something we all want to know.
actually, there are lots of solutions out there that offer this. It could be OBS, which is free. I'm using Wirecast, vMix. Even I think StreamYard does it. So there's quite a lot of technology out there. So the question is not how to do it. It's just Google. There are really solutions out there. If you need more info, you can just feel free to connect with me. I will try to send you some links and stuff.
Right, thank you so much. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any question for Vincent, we'll be taking questions later on at the Q&A sessions. So keep your questions flowing in. Right. All right. Our next speaker, I believe needs not much introduction. He has been working with the Asia Pacific Support Center of the World Scout Bureau since 1997. That's a long, long time. He is the Director of Educational Methods, where he oversees the services provided to National Scout Organization in the area of youth program, youth engagement, adults in scouting, diversity and inclusion, better world framework, safe from harm, spiritual development, and scouting and humanitarian action. That is a lot of portfolio, my friend. Ladies and gentlemen, we are welcome Sid Castillo. Sid.
Thank you, Darren. That is 8 services. That's why Jeffrey Ho calls me Octopus. Let me just share my screen. Desktop to share. Okay, just to confirm, Darren, you see the big slide, no? You don't see the notes? Yes?
Yes.
Yes, we see the slide.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Everybody's introducing themselves. So I am Sid Castillo. I think most of you knows me, but I'd like to share this picture because the eagle has landed. Okay, for this session, I will talk about, I will talk about can scouting bounce back. This is the introduction of the regional director, the question of can scouting bounce back. So this is just like finding out if the Scout method will still work in the new norm. So I have 3 objectives for you. Review the Scout method, appreciate NSO's best practices in the new norm, and recognize what support is available from World Scouting. Okay, so before that, let me review the definition of youth program, because the youth program is the totality of the learning opportunities. So everything, the activities, the meetings, the Scout meetings you have every week, these are all for the benefit of young people. And this is our what. And the why is the purpose of Scouting. This is what Vincent is saying, that until now, we still have the purpose. And our purpose, the purpose of Scouting, has not changed. And then the experience through the Scout method. This is the only way we do Scouting, is the Scout method. So one of the trick questions we are asking our Scout leaders is, how many Scout method do you know? And everybody would say 1. Everybody would say 8. No, it's not 8, but it's 1. It has 8 elements. And when I was in grade school, we were asked to draw the digestive system, the esophagus and the stomach and the small intestine, large intestine. And this system, digestive system, is made up of organs, and the organs is made of cells. So that Scout method can be likened to this, that it works together, but well balanced each other. The first element, the first element is Scout Promise and Law. For me, in my years of Scouting, I have always seen the Scout and Law as a mantra. A guru once said to me that every morning you face the mirror, and in the mirror you say this: you are really very handsome. So do that every day, but make sure nobody sees you and the doors are locked. Okay, so this is like a mantra. And what did BP actually say? BP said, all promises are important things and should never be broken. But when a promise on your honor to do a thing, you would rather die than break such a promise. So I think here in the Philippines, we have a saying that we believe that this is the only youth organization that put our honor at stake. All scouts and scouters around the world, when you do the promise, you say, on my honor. Okay? So the second element is this one. Young people, do you know what is this? Okay, this is a device. I grew up from a kampong, from a village. So one day, my father asked me to grate some coconut, and he gave me this. And I didn't know how to do it. So like a drill sergeant, my dad was shouting instructions at me. So there's no way to learn but by doing it. So BP said, the child wants to be doing things. Therefore, encourage him to do them in the right direction and let him do them his own way. Let him make his mistakes. It is by this that he learns experience. Okay. Element number 3 is personal progression. We compete with ourselves. So when you face the mirror, who is the competitor? The one you see in the mirror, yourself. So I'm biking every day, trying to bike every day. And the first time was only 5 kilometers because I was recovering from my muscle memory, balance, and everything. But every day, every week, I wanted to do more, 10 kilometers, 20 kilometers. And now the last day, I did a 50-kilometer bike, which feels good. And BP said, Our standard for badge earning is not the attainment of a certain level of quality of knowledge or skill, but the amount of effort the boy has to put into acquiring such knowledge and skill. This brings the most hopeless case on a footing of equal possibility with his more brilliant or better off brothers. Okay, element number 4 is team system. What do you call a group of owls? A group of owls you call parliament. So we have many of those in our parliament back here home. I don't have to elaborate team system, but BP said the patrol is the character school of the individual. To the patrol leaders, it gives practice of responsibility and in the qualities of leadership. To the scouts, it gives subordination of self to the interest of the whole, the elements of self-denial and self-control involved in the team spirit of cooperation and comradeship. Okay, element number 5, adult support. For those of you who loves to watch Bollywood movies, in any movie, you have the actors or actresses and supporting actors and actresses. The role of adult leaders are the supporting actors and actresses. In fact, BP has said, the work of the Scoutmaster is merely to encourage the boy in his efforts and to suggest the right direction to it. Element number 6, symbolic framework. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a fireman. This was influenced with a very popular movie during the time called Towering Inferno. And who doesn't want to be a fireman when he was a kid? So in scouting, we use a lot of symbols. We give badges to recognize the efforts of young people. That's why we call them, I want to be President Scout. Oh, these are the President's men. Some people call it Eagle Scouts, some Fuji Scouts. And BP said, for a boy, a uniform is a big attraction. And when it is a dress, such as backwoods wear, it takes him in imagination to be directly linked up with those frontiers who are heroes to him. Element number 7 is nature. Can you guess which place is this? This is in Bonbon Sandbar in one of the 7,100 islands in the Philippines. So, and I think this is the most challenged element of the Scout method because it says that this should be a learning opportunity in the outdoors, which encourage a better understanding of and a relationship with the wider environment. But BP said the aim of nature study is to develop a realization of God, the creator, and infuse a sense of beauty of nature. So we need to go back and study the historicity of this quotation. BP was a Christian, so he's just saying that when you are filled with awe, when you see the beauty of nature, you are filled with awe, and you think and you reflect that something or someone or somehow somebody has created this one. Okay, so I will just shift to slides. Where are you? I will stop share. Okay. Okay. Yes. So these are some example of activities, engaging activities. This is from the National Environmental Education Foundation. I think this is based in Washington, D.C. But the most interesting here, there are a lot of activities. Now, going gone is about. I'll show you. So this teaches children about the stages of extinction. No? So you will see that endangered, threatened, vulnerable, endangered, critically endangered. Of course, next will be extinction. But one thing I like here is the Saving Energy Heroes, which is an activity that can be done at home. And kids will learn about emissions, kilowatt hour, reduce, even Energy Star certified incandescent light bulbs. So yeah. So this is like an audit at home, whether you save your energy or not. This is also another website which I found that says 6 awesome environmental projects to educate and engage children. So one thing I love in this, again, there are a number of activities, but this is the one I find very interesting is, sorry for the scrolling down, is a commercial for water awareness. So the activity basically, you will ask the scouts to pick an animal from a different continent and research how this animal is related to water. So you will create a commercial, 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. And if you want to have a contest and competition, so this makes it engaging. There's a lot of competition happening, the 20-day challenge, 7-day challenge, there's a lot of competition. I know that friends from our troop, the Brighton Venturers, they did a face shield challenge from recycled goods. Some also did a closet cleanliness challenge. So these challenges are very engaging. So when it comes to community service, this site is, I find it very useful, 25 volunteer jobs to do from home. So this site has listed all the 25 jobs that you can do. One of the interesting things here is this number 19, if you can see, is proofread ebooks for Project Gutenberg. So this one you can do anywhere in the world. You can also transcribe historical documents. This is very interesting because the Smithsonian Center has these old documents, and what they do is they need people who can transcribe it into text, and then they will display the image. I think I have it here. If not, no. Okay. So that is interesting. Interesting volunteer jobs. So community service, community engagement can still happen through these websites. Can I continue? For scouting, I find these tools for digital scouting, a scout leader's discoveries in unusual time. This was written by Rio Ashadi of Indonesia, and he has listed all the useful tools, digital tools available on the internet. So some has already been mentioned by Emily, by Alvin and Vincent. So Instagram Live, Facebook Live, YouTube Live. For virtual meetings is Zoom. Everybody knows Zoom. And interactive feedback, Slido. So World Scouting always does the Slido. Kahoot is also good. I saw it work, but it has limitation if it's free. It's a paid. So collaboration tools: Google Drive, Slack, Yammer. Brainstorming tools is Padlet, Note app, Bloomberg, and project management tools is Basecamp and Trello. So there's a lot of things out there, but as Emily has said, creativity is the only limitation. So, and because of this offline thing, we are disconnected but connected. It's easier to invite more input speakers, participants blooms out. Like now we have like 100 or 200, close to 200 participants. Yeah. So this is from Scouts Australia, Scouting at Home. This has a section of activities. Okay, so Scouting at Home, make a rainforest. This one, making a compass. This one is interesting, body math. Keep healthy and learn to measure your heart rate during rest and exercise. So there's a lot, even the wind speed, no? Find out how aviators test and speed of wind. So this is a lot of things. I think I saw in the Singapore Scout Association Facebook page, you have also something like this, especially for the Cub Scouts. The same thing about this is the Scout Association from UK. They have listed all the activities here. Print a prayer flag, mindfulness of breathing, build a bottled boat, wild wind, when tides collide, etc. and etc. But this one is useful because the UK Scout Association has defined all the things that you will need in online engagement. So for example, the instruction said, get into pairs or groups. How do you do that inside the home? So they said, if you are part of a group and they're in online meeting, and it does not really, it's not necessary that you want in a group. So if you need a pair, you can call out your dad, your sister, or your mom to do the activity. So this is very useful definition of terms in their activity books. This is also, wait, yeah, this is, yeah, socially distant scout activities. So these are all definition of socially distant activities for beavers. And these are ideas to get you started, especially for meetings, activities, and adventure. So you can visit this website. Inside, coming from WOSUM, we have an article called Connecting Without Internet Connectivity. And this is text messaging, especially the initiative of UNICEF called U-Report. This is all text messaging. Even the analog mobile phones can work. So personal phone calls, radios, the amateur radio can be engaging. Personal visits, community mailing, market and shopping places. So especially for those kampong or villages that have like a market day, which people gather, that is a very good meeting place or meeting point for scouts. Okay, and the most important thing is the safe from harm, because everything is online and you don't know really who is logging into your Zoom meeting. It is very important that scouts feel safe online. So the World Organization of Scout Movement has an online training on keeping safe from harm online. 8 questions to ask myself to prepare for post-COVID scout activities. So questions like, what is my National Scout organization saying about face-to-face scout activities? So you need to go back to your NSO and ask what is the guideline. You also need to look at the government's policy regarding face-to-face meeting. How do young people in the scout group feel when they come back? So we cannot prevent it, but some may not be very comfortable in coming back to the troop meeting for a face-to-face meeting. That should also be considered and should be listened to. How can my scout group and I help others during the activity? Yeah, flexibility. I'm ready to change. So it's not also a question for the young people. It is also a question for the leaders. So this is also a service. So services.scout.org. As Darren said into the introduction, I'm looking after 8 services. That's why I'm Octopus. But you go to youth program, and you will see that there are several tabs. And one of the tabs here is Scouting at Home and Beyond. So you click that one, and it gives you resources like how to connect with scouts around the world. So I saw some French group in Singapore. There's a French translation of this document. There's an Arabic one. I think there's a Spanish one, I think. Yeah. So you can also have e-learning here, connecting scouts offline, from offline to online. So this is an online e-learning e-learning center. Besides this, the World Organization has a COVID support center. This is the COVID-19 hub of World Scouting. And in this page, we have stories and news on COVID-19, what is other people doing during the pandemic. So Ethiopia, Nigeria, Tunisia, Bahrain, Kuwaiti scouts. We also have a link to Scouts Emergency Response Fund. Those scouts who wants to do a project but looking for some funding, you can go to this site. So these are speeches from our Secretary General, Ahmed Alindawi. We also have a greetings from our our chief Scout Ambassador, Bear Grylls. Okay. Yeah, so information for National Scout Organization. So visit this site. This is scout.org /COVID-19. So if I go back to stop sharing, and then I share the slides again. Where are you? Okay, so I'm back. I have shared to you these slides. So this is element number 8, community development. These are the scouts, the army of scouts from Lebanon after the blast in Beirut. So 5,000 scouts went out and do what they can do. So cleaning all the debris, distributing water, pitching up the tent for those who are affected with no place to sleep overnight. And BP said, duty to one's neighbor is not confined to giving charity. It needs more than that. It often demands self-sacrifice to be effective. So I've shown you some some slides website where you can do community engagement. Okay. So I also gave you, showed you some slides on tools or digital scouting as scout leaders discovers in this unusual time, which was written by Rio. The activity example in Australia, the activities that were given by UK Scouts. And I think Singapore Scouts also have these activity books that you can do online. So for World Scouting, I've shown you things, these things, connectivity without connecting without internet connectivity, 8 questions to ask myself to prepare for post-COVID-19 Scout activities, the WOSM services under the youth program service, and the WOSM's COVID-19 hub. So this is the last slide. What do you think? Can scouting bounce back? So I will leave up this answer to your imagination. As Emily has said, creativity is the only limitation on this pandemic. So that's it, ladies and gentlemen, my friends in scouting. I will give back the slides to Darren.
Thank you so much, Sid. Very, very informative. I think, yeah, that has always been the million-dollar question. Can scouting bounce back to post-COVID? I agree with you fully, and I agree with Emily. You know, creativity is your only barrier. It's the only limitation right here. Right. So yes, we have come to the end of the final presentation of our 4 speakers. Before we go into the Q&A session, the question and answer session, I would like everyone's participation to give us your feedback, how you find today's session. Then your feedback will be utmost useful for us to improve in our next session. So we will wait for a minute or two while everyone penning your feedback. I think, Circuit, you have posted the link to the chat function, yes? Right, so while we are waiting for everyone to input their feedback, I have collated some questions from the audience. Let's start off with the first one. This is, I think, is for Sid. Melinda Bush from BSA is asking whether if there's any English to Mandarin translation of the scouting materials.
Is that question directed to me, Darren?
Yeah, I believe so. It's asking
yes.
whether if there's any English to Mandarin translation of the scouting materials.
Well, as of the moment, there's no translation to the documents I've shown you, and at the moment has no translation to Mandarin, but there are some documents in the services.scout.org that are translated to Mandarin. I suggest you push your National Scout organization to translate this one. Thanks.
Right. Okay. We have a second question from Mr. Sengkui from SSA. I think this question is directed to Vincent. Vincent Sengkui wants to know what was the app that was being shown, the 360 games that you were showing earlier.
The 360 game isn't an app. It's actually an online website where you can get someone else to create for you. So this one is not really a game, but you need someone to create the game for you and host it on any website you want, and anyone else can join in then. But you do need someone to create the game specific to your needs.
Right. Yeah, Vincent, while you're online, there's another question from Mark. I think it's for you as well. His question is, of all the virtual platforms that is available, whether it's Zoom, Google Meet, or Microsoft Teams, is there a recommendation that is more user-friendly and has a wider access. I'm not sure what is access, but I am guessing is the number of attendees that can host by this platform.
It really depends on countries.
Yep. So the question is.
Yeah, so it really depends on countries because, like in Singapore, we use Zoom so much, so everyone has great access to it. Everyone knows how to use it somewhat. So it really depends on which country you're at, which one is more commonplace. Some people prefer Microsoft Teams, some people prefer Google Meets, Hangouts. So it really depends.
Right. So, sorry. Right. We have another question. I think this is for Alvin. Alvin, are you there? I think Alvin is probably left for a minute. So
I'm here. Sorry, some technical issue with the mic.
No,
yeah.
No problem. No problem. Yeah. So Karina has a question. So she's asking, like, for beginner like her, is there any pack applications that she can use to jumpstart online content making?
Online content making, I think generally, depending on what type of content, if it's writing, maybe just read more about the inverted pyramid style of writing. You can Google that, and then it teaches you that, the important things you write it at the beginning. So that's a basic journalism for in terms of writing. But if it's creative and so on, I believe the other speaker just now that was covered. Yeah.
Right, thanks. And Alvin, since you're here as well, we have a question from Tiong Boon. He's asking regarding on Singapore context. Says that the schools in Singapore have strict guidelines on what we can post on social media, especially when students. How can we then use social media in this case? I think it's more about moderating social media contents.
I like that question as well. So during this, it's a very relevant question that all of us face. So whether it's a school or like organization and so on, it's about setting the rule of engagement. So you will have some clear guideline that's stipulated. So if the school has certain guideline, you can still operate within the framework of the guideline. So it will be specific and different for each organization, but you just have to find a way to make it work and operate within the framework of what it is, that it makes sense. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think I agree with you, Erwin. It's really on the threshold of individual organization. And I think schools in Singapore, if I'm not mistaken, they are pretty much managed on case to case. Different schools may have different threshold. So it's really how do we see the boundary and not to step across the boundary. Another question, Alvin. This is from Delwa from Bangladesh. He's asking you, what was your imagination to convert Alvin Lim to Alvinology?
Nothing. It was just like just for fun. Like, I think at the start of it, when I put that how to come up with that name, right, was the fact that I just wanted something that is easy to remember and has my name in it, and you can Google and find it. That's all. Yeah. Oh,
Right.
Something about the online branding thing. Generally, when you look at names and so, you want it to be unique, unique when you are naming it. So when I decided to use that online moniker, what I did was that I did do search to see that there's not many other people using the same name. Otherwise, it will lose a sense of unique identity. And then you also want to look at if you are setting up multiple social channels. So that's something you want to look at. So as you think of your name, right? Let's say Darren. Darrenology, something like that, right? You want to go and check whether it's available on your YouTube, your TikTok, your LinkedIn, and whatever, whether that handler is still available for you to use. So that's a broad, yeah. And sometimes I think for organization, when you use various name also, that will impact. Some people might have AstroTurf by setting up similar sounding account. So you want to make sure that you're going to you went to go and get the name, account name you want. And then especially for organizations, sometimes you may also want to park like all the spoof names, right? You can go and block it first. So for instance, like Scouts, you can have a Scout Sucks and all this. You go and register and get the account so that people cannot have it. Yeah.
Right. Thank you so much. Okay, we have a question from Rafiq. He's asking about, for more than 100 people, what is the best online platform that is suitable for this meeting? I think I probably can take that. I think for Zoom itself, my personal preference is using the Zoom platform because of the virtual background functions that it has. I don't want to show you how messy my background is right now. So this is why I put up the virtual background. This is something I think makes me have a preference over the rest. For Zoom, they have got a few tiers of license. I think this is how they earn money. They have the free account where you can host for a thing only for 40 minutes. And they have the second tier where it allows you to host 100 people. And the next tiers is, I think, 300 and subsequently 500 and even more. So they do have different tier of the capacity. And I think it's all about how much you're paying. And a follow-up question from Karina, I think you're asking, or is it Melinda? You're asking whether is there a discount code for the Scouts? I think that is a very good and interesting question. I think perhaps Sid or the APR team could connect to Zoom Corporation to see whether there's discount code for us. I think that might be useful.
Darren, just am I allowed to say this here?
Yeah, sure.
No, I know some or many online software giving discounts if you have a .edu email address. So, for example, Slido, they have a discount for .edu, and that is why I'm using my daughter's .edu account. So, as of the moment, there's no cooperation with Zoom. I hope so. But yes, if you know a friend that has a .edu email address, that would work. Sometimes they give it for free, sometimes with a very good discount. Yeah.
Right. Thank you, Sid. I think, Sid, there's also I see two more questions for you. This is from Delwar as well. He's asking about, BP has always suggested to go very near to nature, but we are now going for virtual platform. Do you think that form will be healthy for scouting? Pretty difficult question, yeah?
Well, this is the safety and the health of young people is at stake. So in emergency situations, it's really life or limb, So I would rather ask young people to stay and do the activities. As I showed you in the slide, BP is trying to tell us that appreciation of nature is the one important in nature study, he was saying there. And you can do that. The slides I show you, you can do that at home. Well, because if you let young people go out, converge to groups, you are really compromising the health of not only one person, but everybody in the group. And that's and I would say that is not really good when you compromise anybody or each one's health. Yeah.
Right. And there's a follow-up question from Miss Anna Wong. Her question is, will scouting become a classroom education in this new normal?
I hope not.
Yeah, sorry, you're on mute, Sid.
So there's an interesting word that Emily has coined, which is physical. It's a combination of physical and digital. I hope it happens like that, because there can never be a replacement for face-to-face meetings, and we hope this pandemic ends and stops, so that people can enjoy the outdoors. The scouts can do the outdoors and everything. As for now, we stay at home.
Stay safe at home. Right, thank you, Sid. All right, Melinda, you have another question. I think this is more for me. Your question is there a central link for the Singapore regulation or online content for scouting? As we follow chartered school rules, but wonder if there are additional limitations generally for scouting. So how the Singapore Scout Association works is we have a department for communications, which I think that the members of the entire Singapore communications teams are all here today. So we moderate what goes out online through our social media platform, on our Facebook, on our Instagram, on our Telegram. The general rule of thumb we have is we ensure that there's no form of cyberbullying, there's no form of vulgarity, there's no form of unlawful material, no religious opinions. As long as we have that checklist in place and it doesn't cross the boundary, we are generally fine to post the content on our official channels. I hope that answers your question. Yep. Okay, another question from L. Citral. So the question is, a few months ago, teachers, parents were telling our kids that it's not good to spend too much time in front of screen. How can we explain to kids to do more activities on the screen, although we told them that it's the opposite a few months ago? Any speakers would like to take this question?
Darren, maybe I'll take this question. I was just typing my response on the chat itself.
Sure.
So maybe I just give my 2 cents here, because there's no foolproof answer to this, right? After all, asking students to sit in front of a computer for long hours is indeed not very beneficial for health. So what I can suggest is that, I don't know whether any of you have heard about virtual exercise classes. Certain gyms and also say ClassPass, they have started offering virtual exercise classes where the instructor and also all the participants, right, they are connected via video conferencing. So there's an instructor who will be correcting your posture and how you can like move your body when you're exercising. And there's also another example on teleconsultation for doctors to patients. So you can see that there are actually, yes, we have to be connected via a screen. But what we do, right, during the call, right, actually matters a lot. It can be physical activities instead of just sitting in front of the screen all hours. So these are ways that we can consider asking attendees to move around and doing certain exercises, doing some activities that is not just on sitting in front of the screen, and it can help with promoting more engagement as well as more physical involvement.
Yeah, and to add on that, Emily, I think one of the slides you also mentioned or advised to keep our session short. I think limit to 30 to 40 minutes per session. I think this is the maximum attention span that an average human being can take. And I think it is also advised by most doctors, we need to keep away from the screen for not more than 40 minutes, take a break, do some exercises. I think in terms of explaining to kids, today's kids are so smart nowadays. It's not like days back then that we try to cover a lie with another lie. I think what we really need to do is to be as honest and transparent as possible. Explain to them, what the situation is. We often do have exceptions in cases like this. So yeah, we will try to be as upfront as possible to our kids. Why we need to do screen and we can't do face-to-face activities right now. All right, I think we are running out of time. So if you have any more questions, feel free to connect with us through our social media channel as you see on the screen, or you may drop us an email to this email address, communications@scout.sg, and we will direct your questions to the relevant speakers accordingly. Now, we have come to the end of the session. May I now invite my Chief Commissioner, Mr. Anton Jarudin, Chief Commissioner of the Singapore Scout Association, to address us for the closing speech. Sir?
Thank you very much, Darren. I think it's a very long session. I can see everybody there is feeling hungry. And I wrote down quite a lot of points, but I think I'll stick to the time. We're running late and I don't want to hold everybody back. First and foremost, I'd like to thank everyone for your participation and support, especially the speakers. I think this is one of a kind of webinar. There's so much to take in. A lot is asking for the recording so that they can share it. I think, it'll be a good idea if we do that. So we're not going to stop here. I think please continue to engage one another. As you can see, we have people from 28 countries. I think there's a lot of sharing to be done. And what the COVID does is actually the reverse of the physical. We are more engaged globally now during this lockdown as it was before the lockdown. Because before the lockdown, we don't really talk to one another globally. Right now, we are more international than regional. On behalf of the AIS subcommittee, the members of the APR committee, also from Brother JR, we'd like to thank everyone. And this is part of our initiative in the AIS support. In the AIS life cycle, you have the first part, the first phase, second phase, and the third phase. This is the second phase under the development. So we hope that this will help you in engaging the young people and to help you out with the scouting. We can't do it physically, but I think from the session that we had from Emily, from Vincent, and also Alvin, you realize that we can get close enough. Just remember that scouting is a non-formal. So the smaller the group, right? You have smaller breakout rooms, or you talk to one another individually. That is close enough. That is as close as informal you can get, rather than a classroom structured way. So I don't want to continue. There's too much here before I get carried away. So that's all. We shall now end the webinar. Thank you very much. Hope to see you in our next webinar, which is coming up soon. The next one will be on the Wood Badge training, the Wood Badge framework. I think a lot of people are asking a lot of questions about the new Wood Badge framework. If those of you who do not know, stay tuned. We'll keep you updated. Maybe in 2 weeks' time, we'll have that simple webinar and to answer your Wood Badge framework question. So that's all from us and from the team from Singapore and the APR office in Manila. Thank you very much and see you again. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you everyone once again for joining us. We hope to see you soon and do get connected. Bye-bye.